I think so many women like us assumed that we just didn't qualify for sobriety. I wasn't sober curious before I quit drinking. I just assumed that I didn't qualify for it because, I hadn't gotten a DUI. There weren't these like markers. And I realized now that I had been like collecting evidence of like why I didn't have to stop. And the problem with that is while you're collecting evidence, you're also drinking a highly addictive substance, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're like, no, I'm not quote unquote that bad.
Yeah.
While giving alcohol a really big pass for being really, really bad.
Hi. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh my God. I love that we just hang out on podcasts now. Like we're like, okay,
Kinda.
your podcast and my, like we just go, it's like houses, but podcasts. And now I'm happy to be on your
It's like,
podcast.
do you want to come over and have coffee with me?
Yeah.
I love it.
I
And
do.
only you just never leave your closet. So
I mean, ever.
For those of people who don't know you, I just want to really quickly fill them in. Suzanne is an old friend from Chicago. So she's a North Shore girl. That's how we met. And she was the first person who I felt like, it's so funny. I was just thinking about this because like you did sobriety first and then I followed. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do that too. And then you're like, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm like, you know what? Me too. And it was like, and all the other things that you do. And so I'm just afraid you're going to be like, I'm moving to a compound. And I'm gonna be like, me too. So just like, you can't do anything else.
First of all, if I move to a compound, can you come? Because you have to.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
good.
Because I do everything you do. So, but in all seriousness, Suzanne really was sort of my impetus for becoming sober 3.5 years ago. You were the first person online that was really talking about it. So
I can't believe it's been 3.5 years.
I know, but that's why I adore you and why you will always have a special place in my heart.
Oh my God, I adore you.
For those who don't live on the compound with us, will you fill everyone in on who you are and like a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I will.
And start from wherever you want to start.
I know. I never
go way back, or
I never
go way back.
I'm like, well, I was born on a Tuesday. I was
totally.
First of all, I adore you too, and you know that. And you're not like following me. You inspire me as much as I've inspired you. So I want to thank you for that because you are a gem of a human. So I love you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I don't know what. Okay. So I started.
So yeah.
Okay, what do you want?
Maybe
okay,
like what about like when you started My Kind of Sweet? You were doing. You were like, I'm gonna say like style influencer. Do you think that's what you kind of were? Was that what it was?
Yeah. So I started right after it was 10 years ago. I had just given birth to my first baby. And I was what I thought was postpartum OCD, but it turns out it was just plain old OCD that was like kind of exacerbated in postpartum, but I'd still have OCD.
Wait, so for those, like, what did that look like for you, Suzanne? Like, what was that?
Oh my God. I didn't know what it was for about, I would say 1.5 years, which is entirely too long to struggle. But so just OCD. So it's not OCPD, right? OCPD is the personality disorder. And that is like, like liking things tidy. And that's what we think of when people are like, oh, I'm so OCD. I like my pantry clean. And it's like, no, that's not OCD. So OCD is characterized by intrusive thoughts. And it's intrusive thoughts like, it's not like, oh, I keep thinking of this thing. It's kind of like you're haunted by a thought. Generally, they're thoughts of harm, self-harm, sometimes like sexualized thoughts that really don't jive with who you are as a person, which is why they are like so troubling. And then so that's like the obsessive part. With that comes the compulsions, and my compulsions were mental. And so no one could see what I was going through because everything was in my head. So it's not like sometimes it is like a counting or a washing or a compulsion that you can see, but mine was mental. And so my thoughts were around harm for my baby, which I was like totally came out of nowhere. It was really my like worst case scenario. And then my mental compulsions were all of these things like how okay, if I say this song lyric, if I say this prayer, if I so I was, like, constantly trying not to think these things so that I
Yeah.
wouldn't do them.
Yep.
It's a very exhausting and really scary, and it got to the point for me that it was a suicidal. I was having those thoughts, and then I was thinking, "Oh, I think this is really bad. I think that I need help." And so then I got help and immediately felt better. And so while I was still before I got, on the meds, therapy for OCD, I was doing anything to yes, I was connecting with my baby and I was doing all that, but I also really wanted to connect with me and
Yeah.
have something like, who am I now that I'm a mom? Like I wanted me again in all of that.
Yeah.
And so then I started my kind of sweet really it did start just as style. I have a background. I was a merchandise manager, sales manager at Bloomingdale's on North Michigan Avenue downtown. So style's always been a part of my life and I wanted
Yeah.
to yeah, I like used it as an excuse to get dressed up every day and, set up a little tripod in my driveway and look like an idiot and take pictures of myself and then post them. And I was like, I really don't care what anybody says because I need this. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I did not know your OCD story, and I'm so glad you shared that because I think a lot of people would confuse
Yes.
OCD with, like, I am just like 'cause I almost like we throw that word around a lot of like, "Oh,
Yes.
I'm just like so I have so much anxiety in my kitchen, I always want my counters wiped off and
Yes.
clean." So you're and I don't mean to keep harping this OCD,
No,
but so
it's
did
okay.
that present outwardly? Like, no if I were to have hung out with you and been at your house, would I have noticed
No.
you presented externally, like, calm, cool, and collected?
Oh, totally. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have known a thing. I think if you would look closely, you would see, oh, she's really thin. She's not eating anything. She's working out a lot. Like there seems to be like an unsettled, maybe frantic thing, but nothing. I mean, like connecting with my baby, happy. Uh, no, you would no. And even when I told my mom and my husband, no one really knew the full extent because it's a horrible thing to say out loud.
Of course, of course. So much shame around, like, what new mother's gonna admit, like, "I've had thoughts about wanting to harm
Right.
myself or my baby."
And then you
But
think
I've
like,
gotta
oh, they're
imagine it's
gonna.
so common.
It's so common, and yeah, you think that they're going to take you away.
Yeah,
And, like,
yeah,
obviously, I'm not safe. And it took saying the scary thing to get help. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
that's kind of been a theme in my life where it's like, "Oh, I think I get it now. I think we just say the truth, or we say the scary thing, and we say it out loud, even if we're like, oh my God, okay, I don't know what you're going to think, but here's my thing, and here's the truth, and here's the scary thing." And then, like, no one, I mean, at least so far, no one has like balked and been like, oh my God, you're a monster. Oh my God. No, it's been a resounding drumbeat of, oh, yeah, me too.
me too, me too.
Yeah.
And that's why I adore you, though, like, you're such a truth teller in your own way. You're like and not having to, like, make it about everybody else. You're like, "This is just my personal experience.
Yeah,
Anybody else out there?" So
totally.
so you're doing My Kinda Sweet for, I didn't realize it was 10 years ago, but so you've been doing that
Yes.
for a while,
Yeah.
and then post-COVID, you become sober. And
Actually,
you refer to it
before
as
that,
spontaneous oh, when was this?
Ja
2019?
yeah, no, it was January 2020. Like, I know, like,
I mean, what
either
timing?
okay, either the best I mean, it turns out it was the best, right?
Yeah,
Best
yeah,
or worst, but it
yeah,
was for me, it was the best, but yes, because I look back now and I'm like, "Oh my god, holy shit." I'm so glad, obviously, that that happened because in almost every because so I have a podcast, Sober Mom Life, and I just talk to women about their relationship with alcohol, no matter what, like if they're drinking, if they're not. I just want a safe place to let's just talk about it. And in if the women didn't stop drinking prior to COVID, COVID is a chapter in their drinking where it ramped up. I mean,
Yep, yep, that
almost
was me.
yeah,
Yeah,
like almost
yep,
always because of
yeah, yeah,
course, right? And that's so
yeah,
understandable. And so my story is just different than I just happened to so I had a at that point I had my 3rd baby in September 2019 and always after like having babies, I always felt like I had to get over that like hump of like
yeah,
alcohol tasting like alcohol and being
yeah,
like, "Oh, it tastes gross. Like just power
yeah,
through." And then
yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah,
just like don't
yeah,
taste it. Don't
yeah,
think. Yeah, and so then I had done that and it was the first time I had drank since I had him. And it was like a big fancy North Shore party, you know the ones. And like glass is never empty. And yeah, I blacked out. I nursed him in a blackout. And then the next morning I was just uh filled with shame. And and I think because of the OCD stuff, alcohol really isn't a huge part of my motherhood story. You know, like I because people are like, "Well, did you drink a lot to cope with motherhood?" I didn't because I didn't have the space for it when Harper was little. I just didn't. And then anytime I did drink in motherhood, it was always filled with shame for me no matter how much I drank. It could be 2, it could be 3.
yeah,
I can think about times, like, a handful of times, not even that I've been drunk during motherhood.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that was, like, a lot of shame, and so
yeah. Ditto,
yeah,
ditto to all of that, ditto to
yeah,
all of that, and I wasn't even it's very similar to you, I'm like, I didn't really consider myself to be a big drinker.
yeah,
But I do have so many memories of being really honest and accountable with myself of, like, going to bed in a way that, like, if something were to happen to the kids, I wouldn't have been able to
right.
take care of them. I wouldn't have been able to
Or,
handle
like,
an
drive.
emergency, and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and
yes,
that, like, looking back now, I'm like, I do carry I mean, I've let go of the guilt and the shame about it, but I'm really grateful that I didn't keep going down that road. You talk a lot about this, and we've kind of talked about this before, but this idea of, like, our stories, I think, are actually more common than, like, hitting the rock bottom,
yes,
and I think that so many women live in this, like, gray space where it's,
yeah,
like, the drinking can kind of be a little bit, like, for the lack of a better word, like, benign, like, it's not really causing any problems until you stop and you realize, like, oh, it actually was causing a problem, and you and I have shared
totally.
this before about this idea of, like, wanting this really big, full life,
Yeah,
of, like, to experience all the things with our kids and experience all the, like, highs and lows of
yes,
just, like, just life, like, the
yes,
joy and the beauty
all
and the
of it.
pain that comes along with being human.
Yes.
And that's really, I think, the thing, and I know you feel the same way, like, that I was gifted when I became sober, and I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, I didn't know I was missing all of this."
that's the thing. Like, I think that that's probably the biggest trick, and I wrote a book about it that's coming out, but not for a year.
Yes.
So
Yes, I cannot wait
not
to
for
get
a year.
into.
Okay, okay. But I think so many women like us assumed that we just didn't qualify for sobriety. I didn't I wasn't sober curious before I quit drinking. I just assumed that I didn't qualify for it because I hadn't gotten a DUI. There weren't these like markers. And I realized now that I had been like collecting evidence of like why I didn't have to stop. And the problem with that is while you're collecting evidence, um, you're also drinking a highly addictive substance,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so yeah, you're like, no, I'm not. Yeah, no, I'm not quote unquote that bad
yeah,
while giving alcohol a really big pass for being
yeah.
really, really bad.
You're sober for what, Suzanne? You think, like, about a year until you start changing all of your content over
Oh
from
my god.
style, you start, like, can we talk about, I mean, here's the thing that I love so much about you that I feel like I think would be really helpful for women is that
Yeah.
you essentially built a business and your
Yeah.
own, like, started something and really publicly doing it.
Yeah.
Um, and also probably, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, like, not necessarily knowing what you're doing, like, you're just like, "I'm gonna figure this
Never
out as I
knowing what I'm
go."
doing.
And I think it can be really hard for women who feel like a calling to do something, whether it's entrepreneurial or creative or, like, it just another like a next chapter, like a new version of themselves in their lives, especially in motherhood, like, as your kids get older. And I think what you did with, like, taking this what was essentially a style blog and creating this incredible platform now that is creating huge social impact and change for women. What was that? Okay,
Oh my
did
god. Well,
you like, was there intention behind it? Like, were you scared
you
shitless? Please tell me you were.
Katie,
Like, I need the whole
you know,
story.
okay, but you also know the story because you were there at ground zero when we were at a coffee shop and you were
Mhm.
like, you were the impetus for a lot of that too, because there was so I started the Sober Mom Life Instagram, but I kept it quiet. I started it a few months into my sobriety. I had my
Yep.
kind of suite that was the money maker. It was my job. I had an agent. I had a manager doing all the things like campaigns, and it was a small business, right? And then I started Sober Mom Life Instagram just to be like, I just need a place to like formulate thoughts and see how this content can come out. Like, is this a thing, right? And then I can't remember when because it's time isn't real.
Time is not real.
No, that's not a thing. And we were meeting at hometown and we always like
Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah,
why I
yeah,
love
yeah.
you because like we always like bounce ideas off of each other and business.
Yeah,
Like you and I
yeah,
are very similar and I think in the ways that we
yeah,
think
yeah,
about business and just like
yeah,
and you were like, "Why don't you bring more of sobriety to my kind of suite? Like why don't you work on merging these?"
yeah.
And I was like, "Ugh." Like, yes, and oh my god, terrifying, right?
Yeah, and
Yes,
what
I
was
want
it
to.
about public opinion or losing brands? Like, what do you think it was that felt so scary?
It's a good question because I don't think it was the vulnerability because I had practice being vulnerable, like, in public with I had opened up about postpartum anxiety, OCD stuff, which was kind of my first foray into, like, "Can we talk about real stuff too? Like, are you guys cool with that?" And then they were, and I kinda saw so I was like, "Okay, this feels good." So I think it was just scary. It was my kind of suite was working. It was the business, and I just knew, that this would be a big change. It would be like, "Wait, what? What are you talking? Hold on. Sobriety," and not the sobriety that people really know of either. It's like, well, I'm gonna talk about sobriety, but I'm also gonna change the whole narrative of it. And so just like just stick with me.
Yeah,
So that I felt like it was a lot to ask them.
yeah, yeah,
But then at some point it just became very clear I wanted both because they were both me, the style and sobriety. And like the thing about I don't know why I've always been like this. I've been like this since I remember, like, high school, is that if I want to do something or if I wanna go somewhere or if I wanna like, I just do it, and that has not worked out too. It has been, to my detriment, but it has also sometimes worked out, and so I've just never been one to, like, wait.
which I think is, yeah, it's so beautiful and such a thing that I think more women need to see, because I'm sure that you had a lot of like failures along the way,
Oh,
but I think it
are
can
you kidding me? Yeah.
But I think it can be easy, especially because you have a, platform that is so visible
Yeah.
and it's doing so great, and it can be easy to be like, "Oh, it must be easy for Suzanne."
Yes.
Here she is, she's so
Yes.
beautiful and she's got this great partnership,
Yeah. Yeah.
and, like, now she's got this blog and she's got the podcast, like, I could never. And I think the thing that I just want anyone listening to remember and just to, like, push you that it didn't start that way. Like, Suzanne had n no idea what she was doing.
You
I
guys,
think
I
you're very
still don't.
brilliant.
I still don't. I try to be clear, like, I still don't. I'm
Yeah.
always like, build the plane while we're flying it, and the
Yeah, but you just
people
have
who
to
work with me
start.
are like, not like, they're like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "No, I know,
Yeah,
just go with it. Like, this is kinda
yeah,
what we do."
yeah.
Yeah.
But I
And
think
that
it's actually, like, very feminism, like, feminist leadership. I think, like,
yeah,
that's how I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's funny, like, whenever I work on something, JP's like, "Well, why don't you put a plan together and a budget together?" I'm like, "What the fuck are you even talking about?
budget.
I don't
No.
even know how to do
No.
those things.
No, no, no,
I'm
no.
just gonna start, and if it gets there,
Yes.
we'll deal with it later." And I
Yes.
think that that's, like, I wish more women could lean into that intuitive knowing of, like, "I'm just gonna try this," and be able to play a little, have a little
Yes.
fun with things, not take it so seriously. I think you do that really, really well. Like you
Thank
don't take
you.
yourself or the work you're doing too seriously and not afraid of like getting it wrong or messing up or saying something that offends someone. You're like, okay, great. I can say I'm sorry and
Right,
keep
yes. Oh
going.
my
And I
god.
think that's what makes you so relatable and real.
Oh, thank you. No, I think that that's a must is being able to first of all not take yourself so seriously, not hold yourself to such a high standard of not being able to screw up, right? Because like I will screw up and I will disappoint people and I will do the wrong thing, but I will also always be like, "Hey, sorry." Like, yep, like that that's essential. I also wanna make sure women know I do think it's a privilege to be able to, to be able to play around with this kinda stuff, like, I take that seriously, that
Oh,
I'm
yes. Thank
able
you for
to
saying that.
yeah, like, I'm able to do this, and I kind of take that I'm like, I do kind of feel like I'm doing this for women who aren't able to right now, or who
Yeah.
don't have the privilege, because I do have a lot of privilege.
Yeah.
And so I always wanna make sure to make that very clear, but then I take it seriously of like, no, like, I can say the hard things because if I lose followers, it's okay. Like,
Oh,
you
thank you for
know?
saying that. I think
Yeah.
that's so real and not talked about enough. And
Yeah.
I do think there is something of like, I think there's a huge population out there right now who can look at something like you that you are doing or anyone is doing. And I think there's this idea of like, if you just work hard enough or if you just like manifest it, like it will happen. I'm like, I know, but we're not all starting at the same playing field. Things are not equal for everyone. So we don't have the same opportunities. And
No.
so I think just like acknowledging, not that you need to feel shame or guilt about it, but just acknowledging like, yes,
Yes.
I do have another a partner who's helping with his income. I do have someone helping to take
Yes.
care of the kids. There's a lot of privilege both you and I have been
Yeah.
handed. And so just continuing to be aware of that and making sure that we know like it will probably easier for me or maybe you than from majority of women out there because we did have
Yeah.
access to certain things that
It's
other
like that
people.
thing, like, hitting a home run, but you started on third base. Like, okay, well, it's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, you still got a home
Yeah.
run, but, like, I'm
Yeah.
on third or I'm on so, yes,
Yeah.
but then I do feel kind of yeah, I feel honored. I think that women trust me with their stories, and then I can kind of be the megaphone because I have the platform. I can afford to be the megaphone. I'm kind of perfectly positioned to do it, and so that's kind of the if I ever feel pressure, that's the pressure I feel. It's good pressure, but it's like, "Okay, you guys, I don't wanna let you down, like, I'm out here and I want to make sure I'm getting our voice heard and, like, our message heard, and I got you, and we're fighting this big beast of big alcohol
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a big
Yeah.
it's a big machine, so
Yeah.
and also, I also want to always say, like, I think it's easy for people to assume that women, especially who do, like, brave things, like starting a podcast or anything where you put yourself out there, that we're not scared,
Oh, yes.
and, like,
Yeah.
I'm never not scared, okay?
I mean, even just talking to you today, I called JP. He's out of town this weekend. I'm like, I literally think I'm gonna have diarrhea or throw up. He's like, it's
Stop.
your friend. No, he's like, it's your friend. It's your friend. I'm like, I don't even care. And
I
I think,
know, I
listen, and I
know.
think it's because like you and I and so many women who like, listen, if you are a mother and you're taking time away from your kids to do something creative or pursue a passion, your heart is so in it. And so of course you're scared because you just want to do it well because it's
Yes.
always, and I think you do this so great. Like it's not about you, it's about the women you want to touch and help. And like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I'm like, I just want to help so many people. So I take it so seriously, not about like how I think I'm gonna do. I could care less about the me part of it. It's that I want it to work so well. But thank you for saying that because I do think it can be easy to think like, oh, you're not nervous. Like, oh my God, just
Oh
hope
my
I don't
god.
like
Yeah,
shit my pants. I'm
I
so
know.
nervous.
We're both fixing our hair, right? We're like, "Oh my god, you guys were nervous." I sweat through
Totally.
I, like, sweat all the time, like, I'm like, "Well, I definitely can't wear a hoodie or a sweatshirt or a sweater during a podcast,"
Why
and
do you
I've been
think I'm in a tank
podcasting for
top?
I know. I've been podcasting for, like, over 2.5 years, and it's still like, okay, it's just I think it's really easy to assume, like, well, they're not scared, and that's why they are, like, well equipped to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
"No, you guys are I really do think everyone's scared, and
Yeah.
no one really knows what they're doing."
No. Staying on this topic a little bit, but like veering, can we talk
Yeah.
for a minute about only because I know you're so honest about these things and I think it would help so many people. I have a very like love-hate relationship with social media. And I don't we don't need to necessarily make this about social media, but I do think it's for someone like you who is in the spotlight, for lack of a better word, and you have eyes on you. What does the pressure feel like of being on all the time, if you will, or like just showing up and like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can't really get away with being a hot mess, but like, and then so I'm like, are you in behind the scenes a hot mess? Like, what? Because you're hot. If this is a hot mess, like you're very cute hot mess. But do you know what I mean?
You
Like
saw
there's
me
just
fly in here though at 11:01, 1 minute late, like
this is true.
sweating,
This
like
is true.
hair flying, like
This
just
is
like
true.
yes, like literally flying into the seat. So
But you
what?
know what I mean? Like the
Yes.
pressures of social media, of like having to be and look a certain way. And I feel like we all know it's kind of BS.
Yeah. It's not real.
Um, so I just want to like as a quick like
Yeah.
reminder, like we can all just acknowledge like so that's like not real.
It's not real, you
And
guys.
whatever you look like in your home right now or experiencing, that's actually what is real.
Yes.
And we, I think it's just tough because I am excited to get to a place in the world where we can shine a little bit more light on that kind of
Oh,
motherhood and
yes. Okay,
what being a woman can look like.
my motherhood motto, PS, is half-ass whole heart, and that's kind
I
of how
love
I d
that.
right? I think I'm gonna make it like a mug. Um, that's kind of how I do everything. So social media, I think this goes back to starting my kind of sweet so long ago, is I don't have the pressure anymore. And as I say that, I'm like, "Is that true?" And I'm, like, thinking about it. I really see it as an avenue to, connect with people, specifically women, for them to like see the message. Hopefully they see it, like wrestle with the algorithm a little bit. But then that's kind of even fun a little bit now. Like, ooh, I think okay, you didn't like this one. Like it's kind of a challenge. It's kind of a more of at least the feed, because I think the feed and stories are totally different. And so the feed, like, is more polished. But then on stories, I do just kind of show up as, I
Yeah.
share parts of my day. I've never been one to share. I just am not gonna share like every moment of my day. Um, because that doesn't feel good for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. Like I don't share a lot about my kids.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you really don't, which I
no.
love so much. Like,
Yeah.
and you're not on there 24/7 also, which I feel like is
No.
so refreshing,
I know, I'm
you know?
not. Yeah.
Which makes me just think like, and I want to get into this for a second about this, about how you like take care of yourself. Cause
Yeah.
you run a million miles per hour, but I'm like, I don't know, but I'm like, I feel like Suzanne has really good boundaries.
Oh my god, so good. Well, okay, so I'm not a people pleaser and, like, a perfectionist. So which I've really uncovered with my mom, because my mom's a therapist and she works with us over on the Sober Mom Life,
I
and
mean,
so
P.S. I feel like I want to just like adopt her. I mean, I have a love
I
relationship with my
know.
mom. I'm like, that would be
No, I
amazing to have just a
know.
built-in therapist and or could also be a nightmare. Cause I'm like, I feel
No, I
like
know. Well,
you'd
yeah,
always be
she's
like
not
being
my
analyzed.
therapist.
I
No,
love
but
it.
she's yeah, so I have always been yeah, I've always kind of known what I will accept, what I won't accept, what I want for myself, and sobriety also is like key for me knowing like how I feel and what I need, and I've really like kind of tailored that. And generally it's the answer to how I feel generally these days is overwhelmed. And then what I need is either sleep or um sleep rest slash rest or a workout. And so, like, I'm very clear, like, my day, for work doesn't start until 11 because I will work out. Like, I just don't schedule anything before that. I'm like, no work calls, texts, meetings before 11 because I get the kids off to school and then I want an hour to work out. And then I also want an hour to shower and get ready. Like, I don't want to, like, I wanna feel like a human. Um, and sometimes I shower, I mean, most of the time, but, just, like, get myself together. And so that's, like, crucial for me to be able to say and then my day's pretty, like, back to back to back until pickup, but it's worth it to me so that I can have my time in the morning and, like, get my workout done because that is
Oh, no, it's so good.
it's, like, non-negotiable. Because
No,
if I
movement for
don't
me,
feel
yeah, no,
yes. If I
no,
don't feel good, that's my go it's like, "Oh, I haven't worked out." Like,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
not
you gotta
about my
shake out the
body.
cobwebs, yeah.
Yes. It's
No,
not
you have
about, like,
to.
what I look like. It's not about losing weight. It's nothing about that. It's about my go-to is running because, like, my answer, especially with someone with OCD, is always to get out of my brain and into my body because my brain just fucks things up and,
Yep, yep,
yeah.
yep,
And
yep.
so running does that. Like, I love running so much. I love strength training and then yoga. I love, like, you know, you know.
No,
And,
it's great, it's
y
great.
yeah, yeah,
You talk a lot, and we've had this conversation before, but about this idea of coming home to yourself. Like, alcohol is a little bit of running from yourself, and sobriety offers this, like, safe place, like, soft place to land, like, come home to yourself. And it can be really uncomfortable for a lot of people, like,
yeah,
coming home to themselves, 'cause for many of us, it's the first time we're having to deal with some of emotions that maybe we've, like, checked out of or numbed.
yeah.
So when you talk about, like, coming home to yourself, like, I know what that means for me, but I'm curious for you, like, what does that mean for you? Like, what does that look like or feel like? Like, how do you know when you're home with yourself?
I think it's changed in sobriety. I would say in early sobriety, it was I guess still now it's just a little bit different. For me, it was really being able to trust myself and that, like, no matter what situation I'm in, no matter where I am, who I'm with, no matter what, I can trust myself completely to be me. And, like, I don't need for me, alcohol, I relied on that in college and in my 20s to make me what I thought would be smarter, faster, funnier, more beautiful, more relaxed, more social, more courageous, a better dancer, like, all of these things. And then in sobriety, it's been just like "Oh, I never needed those things," and it has been a returning to say, like, "Oh, it's always been in me to know how to do those things in
Yeah,
my way
yeah,
and for me." And so it's been a taking care, it's been a healing of I think about me when I'm little and, like and really showing up for her, and I think I don't know what part of it is sobriety and what part of it is being in my 40s, or maybe it's probably both because I think the combo of both is pretty
it's really good.
yeah, it's, like, so potent or something, like, it's
Yeah,
so good that there's just so much noise. There's just so much noise, and
yeah,
there's so many opinions, and there's so many judgments and shaming and other people's goals and ambitions and all of that. And we can get wrapped up in that and swept away, right? And just totally forgotten. And so for me, it's like, okay, let's just turn that down. Like, shh, okay, not that. Yeah.
yeah, I can relate to everything you just said, and I think the thing I notice about it, for me, like, it's there's so much outside noise, and it's been on us since, the moment we were born as women. It's been, like, told on us, like, who to be, what to look like, don't age, don't do that, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, like, and become anyone other than who you are.
Right.
And, it's sobriety and age, I think, and a little bit of
Mhm.
awareness that's come through, like, meditation practices and
Yeah.
is this ability to turn some of that off. But I will say, and I know you feel this way too, but it is like a moment by moment practice. It's not like, oh, I've got this, and then all of a sudden I'm okay. It's a continuum. It's like if I check in with myself on Monday, by Tuesday, not even by Monday afternoon, at school pickup, I'm already like, wait, I didn't volunteer. Should I have done like the stories and the volume, the noise is always there. It's omnipresent. And so it's one of those things of just be like, it's what you said earlier about like not listening to your brain. I mean, like you are not in
Yes.
charge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God.
We are not doing
Yes.
this today. No, thank
Yes.
you. But it really is. So this whole thing of like returning or coming home to yourself. And I think so many women can think that it's like not necessarily a one and done thing, but like it's a place you get to. And I'm like, oh
No.
no, it's a daily practice.
Yeah.
It's
It's like
a
our
moment
life's
by
work.
moment thing. It's our
Yeah.
life's work.
And
Yeah. And
like,
just when you think you're there, it's like the next level starts like unraveling. You're like, wait a second. I didn't know I felt
right.
this about this,
And
you
like,
know?
I guess, I hope I never get there
Yeah.
because
Ditto.
I think the idea of growth and like we're constantly evolving and we're constantly growing in who we are and who we are is changing and will continue to change and what we need and how we feel and all of these things will change. And so the idea that there's like a finish line, I don't want there to be a finish line for that. Like and it's more of a, like, loving ourselves through it. It's not a, "Why aren't you different?" It's a, "No, like, you are exactly who you are, exactly at the right time," and last week, I changed my kinda sweet to Suzanne Warye on
I know.
Instagram.
How did that feel? What did that feel
Oh,
like?
it was another one of those things. My team did not know, like, my book team did not know, my other team did not know, and it's one of those things where I just go rogue, and this is what I'm saying, like, when I just jump I'm, like, uncontrollable, which
Oh,
is not
yeah.
fun to work with. Um, yeah, I just went rogue, and I had been, like, wanting to do it for a long time, and then I just never felt right, and so then I wasn't planning on doing it that night, but I was like, "You know what? It's time. It's
Yeah.
time."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I didn't get there wasn't a rollout, there was nothing. It was just that, "Oh, you guys, my kinda sweet is now Suzanne Where I," and then I had to teach everybody how to say it because no one knows.
You were the cutest when you did that. You're like a dress and eyes. And I was like, oh, that's actually so helpful. It's like
I
you
know,
have to
right?
talk to us like kindergartners.
Yes. I'm like, "You guys, it's like wear, like like clothes, and I, like your eyes, so where
No,
I."
I
Yeah,
love it. No, it
yeah.
was so good. It was so
But
good.
then I
Okay,
was
wait.
like, "Yeah, this feels good. It feels like coming home." Like, and my kinda sweet served me well for so long. And now it's like,
End
now
of an era.
I know. I
In a
know.
good
It's
way, though.
in a
Yeah,
good
she did you
yes.
good.
She
Like, she was a
did.
good friend to you, and
She
now,
really
like
she
but
got
you're
me
ready.
through. Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I say this a lot, like with the kids in JP about it's a similar idea of just like always being able to like bet on yourself. And I will say to them like all
Yes.
the time, like until the moment I die, like I hope I'm always just like betting on myself. And I feel like you do that
Yes.
so well. We're like, I don't know, but like I believe in myself
Yeah.
enough, like
Yeah.
probably more than like the outside world. Like I
Yeah.
know I'm never gonna like let me down. So,
Yes.
and I think it's
Yes.
so I don't know, just like for women, I hope that we can kind of step into that and be like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna step into me and like lean into me and bet on me for the till the day I die.
As my friend said, and she's a therapist, and I was talking to her just about, she's one of my go-tos of like, "Okay, like, talk me up," or like, "I don't know what I'm doing." And she's like, "You know what? You just have to think like a mediocre white man." And I was like, "Okay." Well,
That's the
I
best
mean,
thing I've ever heard.
I was like,
Someone just said that to me
"Duh."
recently too about something. Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
I think as women, we just discount ourselves like, just off the bat, when we are, like, overly qualified and
Yeah.
we could run the fucking can I swear?
Are you kidding me?
Okay,
I talk
good,
about
I
shit in
thought
my
okay,
pants.
oh, yeah,
Yes.
that's right, okay. Yeah, we
You're
could run the
good.
fucking world,
Good.
and yet we just count ourselves because maybe we don't "Oh, but we'll
Yeah.
tell you 10 reasons why we can't do it." Um, and yes, like, do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Don't run the
Yeah.
world because that sounds exhausting, and
That
who has
does sound
time? Like,
exhausting,
I
but You could do
Don't
it for
run
like a
anything
day.
else, but yeah,
Yeah.
like a day. Yeah.
Okay, talking about betting on yourself, I wanna dive into the book. I have
Okay.
so many things that we're gonna talk about, and
The
you tell
book.
us what you can tell us,
I
and then
don't
I wanna
even
hear
know.
about, like, the process.
I don't
So we
even
know
know
what's
what.
coming out next year. We know
Okay,
that.
yes.
We can
Ok
say that.
so I'm pretty sure October 2025. Like, that's what we're on track. I submitted the manuscript. We're in the editing phase with my publisher. The book world takes a long time. Like,
Mhm.
it's not just like, "Yeah, just, slap it up," and then like, it takes a long time. So October 25, and then, yeah, don't worry because you will be hearing a lot about it, I'm sure. I will
As
be.
we should. Good.
Oh my god. Yeah.
How did it feel like, how has it felt for you writing it? Like, how has that what's that experience been like just for you personally?
I know it's so hard. I always say, like, when I was, like, deep in writing it, people are like, "How's writing going?" And I'm like, that's like saying, like, "How's motherhood?" Because it's like, I mean, first of all, it depends on the second. It's a lot of, I mean, it's great. You write something, you feel, like, so accomplished, but then you dread it the next time, and then you're, or me, and then I'm, spiraling in self-doubt. And so I think I realized, like, writing is probably, like, 20% writing and, like, 80% of the time just doubting yourself and doubting the fact that you can write. Like, so at least for
No,
me.
100%.
I was
Why
like,
is writing
"Oh,
one
why are we
yes,
so
why
neurotic?" Like, "Oh, got it." Like, this is, and it's such a perfect example. We just get in our way. Like, it was a lot of, I took care of myself a lot. Like, I slept a lot because I realized, because some of it is, like, pretty heavy material. It's not all memoir, but it's a third memoir. So there's stuff in there. And so, yeah, a lot of it, but there's also some science, which is very heady and not my not the language I speak. And so then that took it out of me. I realized it wouldn't take it out of me, like, right then, right? Because when you're sitting there writing and you're like sentence structure and correlative conjunctions. What? I haven't said that word. I haven't said that since, like, ninth grade. And, like, comma and, like, how does this sound? So as I was writing, I was okay because I was in it. It would be, like, after. So it'd be, like, the day after, a couple days after, a week after, if I wrote something pretty heavy, that I would just be, like, exhausted.
Oh, I could see that. I
Yes.
could see that. It takes
Yeah.
it out of you, and I don't think we
Yes.
realize how much, like, when you are putting your soul on either paper or
Yes.
into music or into art, it's a piece of you that
Yeah.
is then, like, taken out, and you need to, like, refill back up.
And,
No,
like,
it's
it's taken
real.
out, and then I worked with an editor who I love, Kristen, who you know,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
so she was an editor that I hired to come on, and because I wanted my own editor before I sent it to my publisher, and so it's your heart on the page, right? And it's your words, and it's your, and then a good editor is going to critique it. So then you're putting it out there and you just know, like, it might be ripped to shreds, like, rightly so that it can be built into something, you know, better or different. It's tough.
It's
And
different because that's, like, who you really are. So it's like if
yes.
someone attacks you on Instagram, like, that's
Yeah, you're
fine
like,
because
"You
that's
don't
a
know
you
me."
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
but, like, someone, like, reading your words and critiquing,
Yes.
you're like, "Wait, that's actually how I truly feel. That was my heart and soul on a piece of paper."
Yes.
And so
And
it
then
hits deeper.
she'll be like, "Yeah, try again." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay, got it, okay." And
yeah,
I
yeah,
love her, and she's
yeah,
amazing, and we have, like, a great relationship, and she helped me become a better writer because she was like,
yeah.
"Right, like, but the people who are reading the book aren't gonna care that these are, like, precious words to you. They wanna read a good book, and they wanna relate." And, like, so, like, "Yeah, okay, but, yeah, try again." I'm like, "Okay, got it." So,
Gosh.
I know. I are you, and you're like, yeah.
It's a lot, and listen, like, writing is such one of those, like, love-hate things. So when you were talking about, like, no, I get it. It's like, I almost feel, and I know so many women can relate to this if you do anything creative, artistic, it's almost as if, like, you don't have a choice. Like the kids, when I'm working on things, are always like, well, you don't have to do this. I'm like, you don't understand if this doesn't come out, if I don't do this, like it will haunt me even more. So it's almost like you have to choose your heart. And I'm like, I guess I'm just gonna sit down here for the next 4 hours and just cry my tears out and like pound away at the keyboard and hope something good happens. And,
Oh, and
you
I
know,
could
it's,
never write for like I couldn't write for that long either, which I didn't know about me. I thought I would like yeah, like take a day and like write a chapter or something.
yeah,
No, I'm like 2 hours max. And then I just
really.
start,
Okay.
yes. And then I start being like, oh my God, that looks really dusty over there. You know, like I'm just like, then I start like, oh, something shiny. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, "Oh, that's because I'm done. That's like my max." And then I could come at it tomorrow, the next day, whatever, and see it with new eyes, but I couldn't, like, stay in it for super long.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. Well, I am so excited for this book to come out, and I just am so proud of you, as cheesy as
Thank
that
you.
sounds, for,
Oh,
believing in yourself enough to even like, listen, just to go through the book proposal process in and of itself is such a beast. And I'm so proud of you for so many women like will stop there and be like, who am
yeah.
I? Or like, it's very easy to quit.
And, like,
And
you think about like, you talk about failure, like, there's so much quote unquote failure through this process, right? Through the book proposal process, and then through, like, getting an agent and then, like, selling the book. Like, there's failure, like, the whole time, and then you just keep thinking, "I just need one. I just need one person to say yes," and, like, that's it, you know? Yeah.
yeah, and to just not quit, like to just keep going. And I know you hit roadblocks in the beginning with the proposal and stuff, and you just didn't quit. And I think that's the difference of so many people. And of course, granted, as we talked about earlier, you had the privilege of being able to not quit and to continue going.
That's
But
another
there,
thing
yeah,
too that I'm like, "Oh, holy shit." I mean, it's expensive to write a book, which I didn't know that, right? Like,
yes, yes, yes. It's
like,
not
that
talked about
sounds
enough.
no, and it sounds crazy. It costs a lot of money to write a book that, like, if you wanna make money, like, if you want the book to sell. So, that I think really hit me too, and not to mention the time off you're taking if you have a full-time job to write
Oh
the book,
yes,
and
yes. The
then,
people you have to
like
hire to help you. No,
yes, the people I have to
it's an
hire.
investment.
And even, like, I got a big advance, and so you would just, like, first glance, you would think, "Oh my god, she's rolling in the book money." It's like, no, the advance is over the course of a year and a half, 2 years, and so it's not like, even I don't know, it's a lot, yeah. So, kudos to all the authors because yeah. Yes.
Well, we'll be holding our breath until October
Oh,
2025. So we'll have
oh
to have
my
you back
gosh.
on when it
Okay,
comes
yes, for
out.
sure. Yes.
So you also just recently, because I feel like you got nothing going on
Oh
over there.
god. What did I do?
You just got back from your retreat.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, Suzanne hosts not just her podcast and is writing a book, but also has a community, the Sober Mom Life. Well, actually, it's the cafe.
It's a Silver Mom Life Cafe,
Oh,
yeah.
cafe. Okay,
Yeah. Because
and
I
you
love
have
coffee, that's it, that's the only
because you
reason
have a
it's
lot
called
of
the cafe. I'm like, "Where could we
and
yeah, where could we meet?" "Okay, good, a cafe." We got it.
And you have hundreds of women in this cafe who are
Yeah.
all in all walks of life as far as
Yes.
sobriety journey goes. So
Yes.
every story I'm sure looks different.
Yeah.
And you have, tell me if I'm saying this wrong, like a peer group once a day almost, right? Is that what it is? Like a daily?
So it's actually yes. So right now we have a Zoom peer support group who meets, and they're all different kinds. Like we have 1 year plus early sobriety. We have topic meetings on Sunday, once a day. It's going up to twice a day, and we're gonna, like maybe hopefully work with you and like have bring in meditation, bring in like happy hours. I'm gonna host like a monthly Bravo chat because we want to talk all
Stop. You
about
are the
right.
cutest.
I mean,
I love the priorities. Your priorities, like, we need to talk about
no, for
Bravo.
real. I'm
Not
like,
like that the world is ending or like
yes,
anything. She's like,
right?
hold
No,
on.
hold on, hold on.
I
I'm like,
love
you know
you.
what this cafe
Okay.
is missing? And it's just like what I
It's
want to
true.
talk about. And so then so many women want to talk about it. I'm like, you guys, well, obviously we need a monthly Bravo chat. And they're like,
Yes.
yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just like organically grown
It's
and we're doing
great.
a retreat. Like We do a retreat February and October. This we just
Oh,
got
is
back
it
from one
always
is
it's always February and October?
it was last February and October, and our next one is next February, which it's gonna be, like, completely different because we're not gonna do it in-house anymore because I went crazy. So
Okay. It's a lot of work.
yeah, but it's great, and it's just a great like, my absolute favorite thing is bringing together women who felt alone in their drinking, thought and assumed everyone else kinda had drinking figured out, and they were the only ones who were, like, struggling to moderate or felt this shame or, like, the 3 a.m. wake up and, like, bringing them together and, like, they no longer feel alone. It's my favorite thing to do ever.
I love that. We need more of that in this world. So let
Yes.
me ask you, with all, I mean, you've been doing this now for a few years
Yeah.
and working with women who have all different stories. What is it that you see? Like, what's the one, if there's a common thread or like the common theme that are keeping women either like stuck drinking or like what's the biggest obstacle that you're seeing? If there's like a theme across the board.
I do think that especially for moms, the biggest thing that keeps us drinking is our shame around our drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, and it's understandable because shame is, like for me, it was, like, the most corrosive feeling, and we think that we can't feel it, and, like, we can't talk about those stories that we have of things that we've done when we were drinking that we're ashamed of, like I nursed my baby in a blackout. And I said that, like, pretty easily earlier in this
Yeah.
podcast, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't carry that shame anymore because I've talked about it so much. I mean, I have guilt, like, yeah, that wasn't great. Like, that was not a right? But I can very clearly see that wasn't me as a mom, um, and so moving from shame to guilt because we all have guilt, and I think mom guilt is real, and we just kinda make friends with it, and we're like, "Oh, yeah, hey, that's kind of the tax we pay for loving people so much, and we care so much," right? But it's the shame that is, like, very hard to look at, but it's not impossible. And that's you have to do it with a whole lot of compassion and with in a safe space. That's what we do in the cafe. And it's like once we can work through the shame, it starts to be this vicious cycle of like
Yeah.
it's the shame we felt. Maybe my child saw me like held my hair while I was throwing up after a bad night of drinking, or maybe she saw me throw up in the bushes at night, or maybe she saw me fall down the stairs, or maybe she was in the car when I got a DUI, or, all of these stories that you're not alone if
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
them, and feel not being able to really like talk about them in a safe space and people to say that wasn't you as a mom. You are a great mom. You can heal from this. You don't have to carry this. Then I call it the mold in the basement because we just stuff it down. And alcohol is really good at making us not care. And what we want to do then is not care. Like, I don't want to care about these stories. And so then alcohol swoops in, right? And it's like, I'll make you not care. The problem is, I'll make you not care about anything. And those stories then will probably pile up, right? And then it's that vicious cycle. And so I think shame keeps us stuck and keeps us drinking. And
Yeah. I'd agree.
yeah,
I see
and
that.
I
I
if
see that.
and it's just like, I just wanna tell every woman, like, you are strong enough to lock eyes with your shame. Like, you
Yeah.
just are. You have to do it with a lot of care, and, like, don't do it alone, and, like, therapy, peer support, like, be in a safe space, but
Yeah.
you just don't have to carry it.
I love that so much, Suzanne. Thank you for saying that. And just to add to that, I also think the shame, which I think can be so tricky and hard to find sometimes shame, because I think it can
Yes.
be easy to see those examples that you just noted about, like if you got a DUI. Not that someone should feel shame around those things, but they're easy
Yeah.
things to be like, oh,
Yes.
I recognize I'm feeling shame around that. But I also think there's so many ways that we feel shame in subtle ways about like maybe it's not volunteering at our kids' school that we're like, oh, I feel a little gross about like we carry shame and so many different layers, and it's not always this like obvious thing. And I do think it keeps us in this feeling of being like this lack or this like not enoughness, and like unworthiness. And so it makes drinking feel easier because it's something to kind of comfort or numb that hole that you're feeling that was caused by shame.
And the crazy thing that I just realized, like, probably this last retreat is like, since I stopped drinking, I don't have new shame. And I'm talking shame, right? Like I have guilt. I have guilt. I have guilt about like, ugh, I should have done that, right? But I don't have shame of like I am bad or I am unworthy or there's something inherently wrong with me. I have done wrong things, but like that the idea that there's something wrong with me that I don't wanna sign up for, like, I will never be a room mom because I it's a half-ass whole
Oh,
heart, like, and then
yeah.
I always, like, make sure to, like, you know, thank the room moms so much, and I'm like, "Tell me, like, I'll volunteer for you, you just tell me what to do, but I'm not gonna be in charge because I just can't.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
person, at least
Yeah.
right now."
Yeah.
And so, like, letting yourself off the hook that way, um, yeah, yeah.
No, that's so good. Oh, it's so beautiful. May we all feel
Mm,
that way,
I know.
to have that like understanding, that knowing that who we are is at our core is
Yes,
good. And just it's just intrinsically linked to our humanity, this like worthiness that it's not outside of
yes.
us.
Like, it's
No,
nothing
thank you
you
for
do.
saying that.
That's what I always tell my kids. I'm like, "I love you for what's on the inside, like, not for anything you do on the outside." Like,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
it. And it's the
Yeah.
same for us, right? It's
Yeah.
just, like, it's already yours. Like, it's in there.
No.
Yeah.
So good, so good. This
Mm.
has been such a great chat. Suzanne, let me ask you one last thing before
Katie.
you go. Anything like
Okay.
what's next for you? Like, would you
Oh my
know? Is there a
god.
thought? Because I feel like you were always like you always have things on the
There is a
horizon.
thought.
Is Oh, okay. It can be a secret or you can
I
tell
know.
us.
No,
You
but
could
it's
just
not.
say, "I've got things coming and I'm working on things."
I do. Well, I'm not okay, like, I think about, like, chapter, like, the next chapter, right? I'm in the
Yeah.
sobriety space, like, forever, like, this is my
This is
jam, and
home
I
for
love
you.
it. Yeah, yeah, this is home, and this will always be, like but, like, next chapter is true crime. Oh
Stop.
my god, I know. I haven't even said that, but it is. I'm talking, like,
I'm
a couple
kinda not
years,
surprised. I'm kinda
right?
not surprised. I see
No,
it. No, I
like,
see it.
totally, right? And, like, my
With your brother with Jay?
yes, with Jay, because we went to high school. We went to elementary school and middle school with a serial killer. So we have to like it's
Oh,
true crime. Yeah,
this is in your DNA. This
right?
is
It's
fate.
like yeah, so that's
Okay.
for sure. Like sobriety will always be here, sobriety support, but I
Yeah.
also will branch out to true crime,
You know what? I love this so much because I often think
right?
too, like as women, like we put ourselves in these buckets, like this is what I am. And like, look at Suzanne, style influencer, Bloomingdale's,
I'm like, thanks.
sobriety, and now you're true crime.
I
Like, who
mean,
knows what's next for you?
right? It's
Me and
it
you on our
yeah.
compound, on our
I know,
common
and
here.
look at you too, like,
No,
you're the
girl,
y
no.
yes, yes, you are. Okay, Miss
We're working on it.
California, like,
Working on
badass.
it. Working
You
on it.
are.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, thank you so much. You guys, we will link in the show notes to the Sober Moms Life Cafe so you can join Suzanne and jump in some of her meetings. And we are
Yeah.
rooting for you for this book and
Thank
cannot
you.
wait for it to come out. And
Thank
everyone
you.
here is going to be so excited about it. So thank you for being here. I adore you.
Oh my god, I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you, always, and you're such an inspiration
No,
to me. Always, always.
thank you.
For
Thank you,
real.
babe.